The barn creaked like a coffin under the weight of the storm. Rain hammered the roof in crooked rhythms, slipping through broken boards, dripping into the hay below. A single lantern burned on a rusted hook, its glow weak against the darkness. In that faint circle of light she hung, wrists bound cruelly above her head, rope cutting into tender flesh. Her lips were cracked, her face streaked with mud and tears. She whispered into the void, voice trembling against the roar of thunder. "My soul's already gone." The words barely carried, but the emptiness in them chilled the air more than the rain. From the far end of the barn, boots scraped against wood. The villain stepped out of shadow, hat tilted low, whiskey bottle swaying in one hand. His eyes gleamed with cruelty, smile bent like a rusted knife. "Cry all you want," he muttered, breath thick with liquor. "Ain't no one coming for you." He tugged the rope once more, making her body jerk against the post. She bit back a cry, refusing to give him the sound of her pain. His laugh rattled low, then he turned and staggered toward the storm, door slamming behind him. For a moment, only the rain remained. The lantern flickered. Her body sagged, each breath weaker than the last. Then, the heavy creak of the barn door again. A figure entered, steady boots sinking into mud. A lantern lifted high, chasing the shadows from the corners. The rancher's weathered face came into view, eyes sharp, jaw clenched, every line of him hardened by years of dust and labor. His gaze froze when it fell on her. His blood went cold. "Dear God," he breathed, stepping closer. She lifted her head with the strength of a dying ember, eyes barely open. Her voice was a whisper wrapped in thunder. "Leave me. I'm already gone." The rancher dropped the lantern into the dirt, rushing forward. His calloused hands trembled as they clawed at the rope, working against knots slick with blood and rain. "No," he said, voice breaking against the storm. "Not tonight. Not on my watch." The storm outside howled like the devil himself, but inside the barn, hope sparked against despair, fragile, trembling, but alive. The rope slipped free with a harsh snap, and her body fell limp into the rancher's arms. She was weightless, more shadow than flesh, her skin clammy and pale. Her head lolled against his chest, breath shallow, barely stirring the soaked fabric of his shirt. He lowered her gently onto the hay, lantern light spilling across her face. Her wrists were torn raw, deep grooves of rope burn etched into her skin. Blood trickled slowly, dark and sticky, painting the straw beneath her. The rancher's hands shook as he pressed his kerchief against the wounds, desperate to slow the bleeding. Her lips moved, words broken and ghost-like. "I told you, my soul's gone." He leaned closer, voice firm though fear burned through him. "No, girl, you're still here. You hold on." Her eyelids fluttered, the storm outside echoing the storm within her. She coughed weakly, every sound a knife through silence. From the distance came a laugh, hollow, drunken, cruel. The villain's voice, carried by wind and rain, echoed back into the barn. The rancher stiffened, lantern shaking in his hand. He knew the man hadn't gone far. "Please," she whispered, clutching at his sleeve with surprising strength. "He'll come back. He always comes back." The rancher steadied her trembling hand, his weathered palm wrapping over hers. "Not if I've got breath left in me." He tore at the last knot binding her ankles, the rope slithering to the ground like a snake cut loose. Her body shivered violently, caught between life and death. The rancher scooped her up, lifting her against his chest. His arms strong, though his heart thundered with dread. Outside, lightning tore open the sky, flashing across the ranch. For a heartbeat, the land looked like a battlefield. Shadows of the villain moving along the ridge, circling like a wolf refusing to leave its prey. The rancher pulled his coat tighter around her, whispering low, almost to himself. "You're safe now." "I swear it." But even as he said it, the storm carried back that laugh again, faint and mocking. A promise of violence yet to come. The barn door slammed in the wind, and with the woman clinging weakly to him, the rancher knew the fight was only beginning. The storm chased him all the way to the cabin. Rain stung his face, mud sucking at his boots as he carried her in his arms. Her body was cold, fragile as porcelain, her breath shallow against his chest. Each step felt heavier, as though the weight of her suffering pressed down harder than her body ever could. The cabin door groaned open, hinges squealing like an old ghost. He kicked it shut behind him, the storm muffled but still howling at the windows. The rancher laid her gently on a cot near the stone hearth. With trembling hands, he struck flint against steel until sparks caught. Flames leapt alive, bathing the room in amber glow. Her eyes flickered open, glassy and uncertain, reflecting the fire's light. She tried to push herself up, but her strength gave way. He pressed her back down softly. "Rest. You're safe now." Her lips parted, voice no more than a fragile thread. "Safe? There's no safe." Not from him. The rancher's jaw tightened. He dipped a cloth into warm water from the kettle and began washing the blood from her wrists. She hissed in pain as the cloth pressed against raw skin. He didn't stop, only steadied her trembling hand with his calloused palm. "You've been hurt worse than most could bear. But you're here. That means something." Her eyes searched his, tears brimming. He said no one would care. That no one ever would. For a long moment the rancher was silent, only the crackle of fire filling the space. Finally his voice came low, steady, like a vow carved in stone. "He was wrong." She turned her face toward the fire, shadows painting the bruises across her cheek. Memories flickered behind her eyes. Nights of fear, hands that struck instead of held, words that cut deeper than any blade. She shivered, pulling the quilt closer. The rancher set the kettle aside and placed a steaming cup in her hands. The scent of chamomile and smoke rose with the steam. "Drink. It'll steady you." She hesitated, then sipped, warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time that night, she didn't flinch at silence. Outside, the storm began to ease, but inside the cabin, another kind of storm raged quietly, fear clashing with the fragile spark of hope. Dawn crept over the plains in streaks of pale gold, the storm's fury giving way to silence. The rancher stepped outside, breath curling in the cool air. His boots sank into wet earth, the smell of rain and mud heavy around him. He paused by the fence line, eyes narrowing toward the ridge beyond the barn. A shadow moved against the horizon. A lone rider, still as stone, horse shifting beneath him. Even at a distance, the rancher knew that stance. Shoulders slouched in arrogance, hat pulled low, whiskey bottle swagger even from horseback. The outlaw. The rancher's hand tightened around the stock of his rifle. He didn't raise it, not yet. The figure sat there like a vulture, watching, waiting. Then the rider leaned forward, spit into the dust, and tugged the reins. The horse turned, slow and deliberate, trotting back over the ridge until both man and beast disappeared. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Inside the cabin, she stirred, pulling the quilt tighter around her bruised shoulders. Her voice was hoarse, trembling. He was out there, wasn't he? The rancher lingered in the doorway, reluctant to bring the darkness inside. Finally he nodded. "He's gone for now." Her breath hitched, eyes darting to the shuttered window, as if the walls themselves could betray her. "You don't understand. He doesn't leave. He circles, he waits. He'll come back." The rancher's gaze hardened. He set the rifle against the wall, jaw grinding like stone against stone. "Let him circle. Let him wait. He won't touch you again." She shook her head, tears burning the corners of her eyes. "You don't know what he's capable of." The rancher crouched beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. His voice was low like the calm before thunder. "I know what men like him are. I've seen their kind burn themselves to ash. And I know one thing, he bleeds like the rest of us." A long silence fell, broken only by the crackle of dying embers. Her hand tightened around the quilt, knuckles white. The outlaw's presence still lingered in the air, like smoke refusing to clear. The rancher stood, stepping back toward the window. His shadow cut across the floorboards, tall and steady. If the villain was circling, then so was he, and he'd stand between her and that darkness until his last breath. The town lay quiet under the weight of morning dust. The rancher rode in slow, his horse's hooves drumming steady against the hard-packed street. Every shuttered window, every tilted signboard seemed to whisper the same warning. This was outlaw country, and justice here walked with a limp. He dismounted outside the sheriff's office, boots sinking into the dry dirt. The door creaked open, hinges tired from years of dust storms. Inside, the sheriff sat behind a scarred desk, hat tipped back, a tin cup of coffee steaming in his hand. Lines carved deep into his face told of sleepless nights and too many graves dug under the desert sun. The rancher removed his hat, voice low and urgent. "She's hurt bad. He left her tied like cattle in my barn. And he's not done. He'll circle back." The sheriff studied him in silence, then leaned forward, eyes dark beneath the brim of his hat. "You're talking about McGraw, ain't you? Man's a snake with friends in every saloon corner. He's slipped my rope more times than I care to count." The rancher's jaw tightened. "He's not slipping this time. Not while I draw breath." The sheriff set his cup down, the clang of tin echoing in the empty room. "Law moves slow, rancher. Slower than men like him. But I'll ride out, take your word, and set it down proper. If the girl's ready to speak, her testimony could see him hang." For a moment, the rancher said nothing, only stared at the dusty floorboards. Finally, he spoke, voice carrying the weight of both promise and warning. "She's barely clinging to life. But if breath leaves her, it won't be without me taking him first." The sheriff rose, adjusting the badge pinned to his vest. His hand hovered near the revolver at his hip, not from fear, but from habit. "I'll gather 2 deputies. But hear me plain, you keep her safe till we come. Men like McGraw, they fight dirty, and they fight desperate." The rancher gave a single nod, tipping his hat back on. His boots echoed as he stepped out into the harsh daylight. From the saloon across the street, a curtain twitched. A pair of watchful eyes marked his every move. By sundown, McGraw would know the law had been stirred, and desperate men always struck before dawn. Night fell heavy on the plains, darker than pitch, the kind of night where coyotes hushed their cries and even the wind seemed to crawl. Inside the cabin, the fire burned low, its glow flickering across the young woman's weary face. She sat wrapped in the quilt, eyes darting to every creak of the timbers, every whisper of the storm outside. The rancher moved slow across the room, checking the rifle by the door, lantern burning steady on the table. His jaw was tight, eyes hard. He had felt this kind of silence before, the silence that comes before violence. Then it came. Hooves in the distance, low voices, a hollow laugh that cut through the night like a blade. The woman's breath quickened, fingers clutching the quilt. "He's here," she whispered. "I told you." He always comes back. Through the cracks in the shutter, orange light danced, torches. 4 figures on horseback, circling the cabin like wolves scenting blood. One dismounted, boots crunching in the dirt. His voice carried clear, soaked in whiskey and malice. "Hand her over, rancher! You know she's mine?" The rancher stood tall in the doorway, rifle leveled, the glow of fire outlining his frame. His voice was a steady growl. "Not tonight. Not ever again." Laughter erupted from the darkness. The outlaw stepped forward, torch in one hand, pistol in the other. "You think you can keep what I've claimed? I'll burn this shack to the ground with both of you in it." The rancher fired a warning shot. The crack of the rifle split the silence, echoing into the hills. Horses reared, torches flared, curses spilled into the night. The gang surged forward, fists pounding against the cabin walls, boots kicking at the door. The young woman screamed as splinters flew, the door buckling under their assault. Inside, the rancher dropped another round into the chamber, his hand steady though his heart thundered. He planted himself between her and the door, voice low but sharp as steel. "They'll have to drag me to hell before they touch you." The cabin shook under the force of fists and boots. Flames from fallen torches licked at the porch. Shadows twisted wild on the walls. The night had turned to war.